So now we can take a peek at some of the sample output. A lot to digest there, for sure. Regular expressions is not something that you can do immediately because you can mess it up a few times. You have to make sure your pattern matches specifically. If your pattern doesn't match 100% to what you're looking for, even 95% can run into problems because you're going to miss domain names or email addresses more specifically. So the examples that we have here aren't mission critical examples, but you definitely want to have a mission critical attitude when you put your regular expressions together. And there are lots of different libraries that you can purchase that have the regular expression already written out, because for the most part, regular expressions are going to work in similar ways across languages and technologies. All right, so here we are. We have a reset with that domain just because that's a standard thing to do, reset it. And then we're going to do a while, as we're familiar with. This is going to use the list to grab the key and the string. It could be anything you want. These are two separate values. We're going to grab that key value pair from AR domains. That's something we've already talked about, all of this. The difference now is EREG, which is going to match that pattern for a regular expression. And you can see $simple website 2. That's going to be the example. That's the string we want to pass in. And $string, that's going to be what the source is going to be. And if we look up at the array, because that's going to be the value for that array element, that's going to be, if we look at this, it's going to be whatever the value is here. And the second one is going to be whatever the value is here. And we're going to just use the first pattern. And that's the first parameter there. So there we go. The pattern and the actual test, the source string that we're going to test. And then we can just output it in a while loop, and we can see which ones are successful. If it didn't return true, because this is going to return true or false, we can see which ones are not successful with a simple if-else. So with this first one, everything matches, no problem. And if we look at the domain that we're using, the domain list, simple website 2, that's the second one there. We're not using this simple version. We're using this more advanced version, and I'll show you how that works. But what we'll do is we'll actually just use that first that I've explained and see what happens. You can see the second one makes everything work right. Well, look at that. Only .com is accepted, not these. So these are all valid, but it didn't accept them. We have to figure out why it's doing that. If we peek up at the top, we can see that we're using that OR notation. Extended the same thing here to now only use an OR that's going to add the other domains that we find are valid. If these are the only domains you wish to have entered, then you can separate them with that pipe, and then it's going to allow those differences. You can add all of them if you wanted to in a simple way. Just get them all done, you know they're there, or we can create a more advanced pattern. And as you can see, the domain check is going to do just that. Very, very advanced. Parentheses are going to separate things just like our algebra equations, so keep them in parentheses when you want to get really complex. Note that we're using that bracket with all the letters in there, capital, lowercase. We don't include dashes and things like that, but that's for the beginning, right before that dot. And we also have different symbols that we're going to allow there, a dash or a dot. And we can allow 0 or 1 of those. And that's another little part that's going to allow 0 or 1, nothing more than 1, and that's going to be immediately preceded there. And then we can do the same thing, and then we have 0 or more. So this means that we can have 0 or more of whatever is preceding it in the parentheses. So all of this gets complicated, doesn't it? Well, this is all going to allow us to have different sections that are going to have dashes and dots and letters and numbers that are going to allow us to have that in that section. And that's the middle section of our domain name check. And then the final thing is that we're going to accept a dot, and this is going to say that we need a dot there. Of course we need a dot there because we need .com, .co.uk, .edu, whatever. And that is going to have another pattern that can be matched, as you can see letters, just letters it accepts, upper or lowercase, and then this is a set. It means that we're going to take 2 or more, 2 comma something. That means 2 or more. We specify how many we actually want. Didn't have that in the list, but that curly brace means a set. It could be 0, comma 1. It could be 2 to whatever the range is. So you can put that in there, and it's optional to have that second parameter there. That means as many as you want there. So this is a wider offering, a wider allowance for different domain names. It might not be mission critical, but you get the idea that things can get pretty complicated. My recommendation to you is to actually go out and find the regular expressions that you need. Start to work with tools. There's commercial software out there that you can test regular expressions and really start to work with it and play with it on a simple level and get this example to work for you. And if we look at the bottom here, we have different examples of what could be successful. This one is saying that other things aren't successful. The only invalid one is .dom. So you can see that the second example here, Simple Website 2, has its limitations. So again, reg, and that's going to just take that pattern and then the string that we want to use in the loop. So it's going to bring all the values for that array. And we know that .dom isn't accurate, but these would be valid. So that's not working correctly. And here we have this. This is going to allow .dom, but you get the idea. You can push this into your database and then check it there as well. Or you can just have just the select domains that you want to offer. And this doesn't get updated so much, the list of valid domains, but you really want to have something that's going to be effective for you. It's really up to you how much you want to test for that. But you can see everything else was successful there, and that domain check is working much better. But it's allowing a couple of things to come through, but it is working for something like www.lynda.dom, lynda.com, things like that. And we can just take off the www and refresh and see that that's successful because you can also just put a domain name in without worrying about the www. So you can test that particular part and see that it works for you. Because we have the plus in there for the letters and numbers, but the dot actually is a part of this little pattern here which says 0 or more. So we're definitely taking in at least one character that has to be a letter first. That's the limitation there. Limitation to letter, uppercase, lowercase, or just numbers. But then afterwards, this dot can be at the beginning of something, meaning that after that, the dot is going to be allowed after at least one character is set. One of these types of characters is set. And that's going to work based on this little section there, 0 or 1. And overall, this little section here is going to be 0 or more times. So you can figure that out. A little bit more complex. And like I said, there's definitely some very interesting details on working with regular expressions. I do enjoy using it a lot, and it's been a treat to actually work like that. And keep in mind that you can do client-side JavaScript that allows you to work with regular expressions as well. So maybe you are aware of how this works already. And also you can work with Flash and other programming languages and tools that actually allow you to do pattern matching. Even working within Word and word processors allow that now. So it's something that is still very techy, but it's definitely something that's outstanding. It's like another language, really.